Hi, I'm Mike Island. Welcome to the latest episode of Life After the Locker Room with myself. And you all know him as Tef or Teflon. It's Chris Hobbs. Say hello.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on.
There you go. Right. Okay. We are going to go into a big deep dive on where he's up to with his career, where he's been, and all the bits and pieces. Because the idea being is we kind of open people up in a loving way, obviously, so you guys can learn from what they're going through and go, that's a bit of me, actually. So we had a chat beforehand because normally I know the people, but I've never spoken to you. I've been aware of you because obviously you've been around the game forever. But yeah,
Yeah.
tell the kind of the viewers and all that where you started and where you've been, because I mean this was just we were chatting for half an hour there, just gassing away. I was like, oh yeah, we've got to do some recording. So yeah, talk. Where did you start?
So I started playing football back in I think it was about 2004. I think so. I started at the Farnham Knights Youth, and yeah, to sort of I sort of was telling you beforehand. So what got me into football was my best mate at the time moved to America, and he was sent. He was a teenager playing rugby in England. So when he moved to Georgia and started playing high school football, he started sending me emails with pictures of him with cheerleaders under the Friday night lights and living the dream. And I was like, I quite fancy a bit of that. So I did some Googling, found the Farnham Knights youth team, and I just rocked up there one Sunday, and it was the start of the season at Surrey University. And it was quite a funny scene because the car park was pretty empty, and there was just these little, there was about 5 dudes just sort of stood there milling around, no sign of an American football team. And then anyone who knows the Rainses, so Coach Steve Rains and Jenny, they're amazing people. This car just turned up, and Jenny Rains popped out of the car, and she just came up to me and went, "Are you here for Knights American football?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, they don't actually train here anymore. They've moved to Aldershot. And Aldershot from Guildford is like a 20-minute drive." And I was like, She's like, "But if you like, I could drive you to practice." And, it goes against all the rules you get told as a child to not get in cars with strangers. But I remember calling my mum saying, "No, it's fine. The coach's wife is here and he's going to take us to practice." So me and these other 4 guys, we bundle into the car. We drive over to Aldershot, and Coach Simon Shrow was there. And at that time, the youth league was like a 5-on-5 league. And I remember we were warming up, and then the night seniors, they were playing their European League Cups games. Then they played, the European Cups in the Aldershot Rugby Stadium and everything. And suddenly these Man Mountains were there. And literally my first practice, we were sort of warming up, and Tony McKenzie, one of the, Britball Hall of Famers, massive, Scottish DN, and he just came along, and I remember he grabbed my shoulders, picked me up and went, "Why, hello, little pup," and then put me down, and immediately I was just like, I love this game immediately. So that's how I got into it.
He's a lovely fella. I met him, and he's taking the piss out of Kev Keohane, obviously someone that you meet eventually in a bit. But yeah, he was just taking the mick out of him because he lives just up the road from me in Cornwall now. T Mac, small world, isn't it?
Yeah, T Mac,
very small.
I mean
world.
that line, that Knights team, that I think most of their offensive line was a starting GB line. They had Tango Lockwood, you had Dave Carpenter, Kev Keohane, Pete Fields, Tootle, they were all GB linemen. They were all there, and us as a little youth team just there, and my love for the game started building. I remember being a water boy for their game that they played against one of the sort of French teams there, and I was just sort of running on, and there was this, I think his name was Tim Seward. I think he was a Canadian guy that was playing, and he was playing linebacker, and I remember this guy running back, he just freaking killed him, and the guy was unconscious, swallowed his own tongue, and they were trying to fish his tongue out and everything. But I water boy, I run onto the field, and I was like in the huddle as like a little kid looking up for these monsters, and I was like, "Oh man, you killed him." And I remember him leading, he goes, "Well, that's what you get for trying to cut block me, motherfucker." It was so good.
Love it.
Yeah, so that was youth football. I played youth football for a couple of years. Then I went to university. So I played university football for Warwick Wolves, but that was back in the day when joint Bucks teams could exist. So I actually went to Coventry Uni, but it was joint with Warwick. So I basically played a degree's worth of football with Warwick for 3 years, and then the rules changed. American football became a Bucks sport, and suddenly we were faced without having American football at university. So I founded the Coventry University Jets.
Good idea.
Which, yeah. So I remember going into the SU and saying we were going to get 50 guys to pay 100 quid to play football, and we got laughed out, and having arguments with the groundsman that the rugby field was too short and all that sort of stuff. So myself, Ben Abbott, I don't know if you know him, and Mark Hyam, we sort of managed to get that going. So we brought football to Coventry Uni, and then you sort of fast forward 10 years, those guys had Div 2 champions, Div 1 champions, played in the Premier League for a bit before they got shit kicked out of them.
We don't talk about that bit.
No. Yeah, so in that period, I was playing night senior. Obviously, the Coventry Jets senior team were there. They were aware of me. They spent a while trying to get me to abandon my brotherhood at the Knights and come play for the Jets. And it wasn't until when I finished uni, I moved to Bristol for my job. My original attempt was to travel to play for the Knights, and that was the year that the Knights withdrew from competition due to player safety, and basically it was low player numbers and all that sort of stuff. And literally on that night, Paul Rickus, I remember, messaged me on Facebook saying, "Well, I've just seen the Knights have folded, so you don't have a team anymore. So do you want to come play for the Jets?" So just like that, I was going to Jet. Yeah, exactly. So I spent, we call it my peak years playing for the Coventry Jets through my 20s.
Nice.
And that's where I tore my ACL for the first time. So it was away at EKP. Lovely. Couldn't have been furthest away. Just caught
that's a hell of a drive with the busted ACL.
Well, and because I was living in Bristol, so we'd driven up to Coventry from Bristol to park my car, get the coach at 5 a.m, go to EKP for the day. And I remember snapping my ACL, obviously, there, and having to go back on the coach ride and, get into the truck stop, and couldn't even walk to go for a piss. And then getting back to the car park at, 11 at night, and then like facing a 2-hour drive back to Bristol with a destroyed knee. So I remember being in the ambulance at EKP, and they're like, "Do you want to go to the hospital?" I was like, "Not here. Like, I'll get left behind." No. So I'll suck it up. And I remember luckily it was my clutch leg. So when you're doing the motorway driving, it's you don't really need it much. And I went to the hospital the next day, and it was like, you destroyed your knee. So I had ACL reconstruction and returned from that and played.
So that's a poignant moment there, because there's some people that stop, and there's some people that just go, "I don't care." You're like, because I mean, one thing that kind of the viewers need to know is your job is rock and roll. You told me what you do. You are an aerospace engineer, and it's helicopters, submarines, all the bits and pieces, all the cool stuff that we all kind of dream of doing. And you're thinking, I've blown my knee to pieces, and I've got this Gucci job. Stuff it. I'll carry on playing this incredibly violent sport. Was there ever a moment at that point where you were like, "Nah," or did you always think, "I'm just going to go back to it. It's what I know"?
Well, it was that. For me, it was never a doubt. And I remember, so when I went to the surgeon and he had the MRI, and he was like, "So we'll get the MRI done, and then we'll do the surgery." And he goes, and I remember it to this point in the bank, he goes, "And then we'll discuss what level of sport you can return to." And I was like, "Sorry?" Like, because you see in the NFL, like, all the time, people snap their knees, they're out a year, then they come back. So never in a doubt in my mind was I not able to return from this. And so he went, "Yeah, we'll see if what level of sport you can return to." Ooh. And I was like, but you're going to fix it. And he went, "Yeah, but your body might not take to the graft, or might have complications or whatever. So we don't know." He goes, "My aim is to obviously get you back playing, but we don't know." And I remember coming out of the hospital and I burst into tears. Yeah, and I remember coming out of the hospital and bursting into tears, being like, that is the first time somebody's told me that this might be over. And
heavy.
And I couldn't imagine. I think we alluded to it in the pre-talk. I can't imagine my life without this sport. And I know that day's coming, but I wasn't ready for it then. So I was like, absolutely going to rehab and going back to football was never going to happen. And then so I did all the rehab, I did all the gym and everything like that, and I got back playing. Bought a Don Joy brace. I was going to slap it on, and that was it. And I remember coming off the back of that and immediately trying again for GB. Immediately trying to put another submission in, but I didn't have any film because I'd been out. So I remember going around all my previous coaches saying, can you write me a reference? And then I dropped it to the head coach at the time, saying, like, I don't have film because I've just come back from ACL, but here's all these coaches saying what type of player I am and the type of teammate you'll get with me, because I might not be the flashiest player, I might not be the fastest player, I might not have, I've got the nickname Teflon for a reason, because I drop easy balls. It's ironic because I'll jump up in the middle of triple coverage and catch it one-handed, but if I'm wide open, which is when you typically get thrown to, I'll drop it. So that's where Teflon comes from.
I like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. So gave the Jets my years, and then the Jets folded, and I was living in Bristol, so natural choice was to go play for the Aztecs. So I went to the Aztecs. Played loads. I was, definitely wasn't buried on the depth chart. I didn't start, but I was second in rotation. Scored a few touchdowns. I had a great. It was a fine year. And then my friends played at Berkshire. Their running back, who was a GB running back, I forget his name, Curtis, I think it was, but I can't remember. He'd stopped playing.
Curtis Wollaston?
Maybe the Berkshire.
Yeah, he was a herd boy for a while. He was one of us.
Yeah. So he'd stopped playing, and they went, wow, we're suddenly without an RB1. And I remember Mike sort of saying, come to Reading, come play with some boys. We've got some uni guys here, come play. So I did that, and then blew my other ACL. And it was funny, is both my ACLs and snaps were both non-contact injuries. The first one was catching a swing pass, and the second one was just putting my foot in the ground trying to cut on a sweep play that was a linebacker was trying to come over the top, because I play running back. I just put my foot in the ground, and it just went on me. So
how did that
again, and again, that point was like, well, I've rehabbed it once. There's no reason I can't redo it again. And I was, determined to come back. So I did. I had one practice back, and then COVID hit. And so I had the year off, an extra year to do the G-Hab. And I remember, like, during lockdown, I don't know if you ever heard the phrase, you became a chunk, a hunk, or a drunk. And and I, the weather was good, and I had all the garage stuff. I do CrossFit, and so I was like, just spent that summer like working out like mad, getting into real good shape. And then when football returned, the Renegades took the decision to sit the season out because they, the league offered them the opportunity. And then Coach Tootle, he was coaching the head coach at the Knights, and he sort of messaged me and was like, look, the Knights are not sitting out. We fully intend to compete, and Reading's only just down the road. So if you want to play meaningful football, come home, basically, because
come home.
Come home was his message. And he was saying, I remember him saying, this team could really do with your leadership, because veteran, been around the sport, once a night, always a night, that kind of stuff. So I went back home. Played 2 seasons with the Knights, and then my job changed. So you were talking about the helicopters and everything like this, and I changed and moved to Dorset, and it was I wasn't going to drive 2 hours from Dorset or whatever up. So my final team switch was to the Bournemouth Bobcats, and I say final because the point of this call and whatever, I don't think I'll move teams again, and I think I'll see out my playing career here, because
did you know that when you transferred, did you think this is probably where I'm going to retire, or were you just thinking I'm just going to play here for a bit and see how we go?
It was, I just can't think that, each year I say I don't know how many more years I've got. And each year I'm like, have I got 1 or 2? And I think I was saying to you beforehand, right? And I know I'm being recorded. My child is shouting at me. Can I hold 1 second? I'll be right back. Sorry, you have to edit this bit out.
It's all right. It's all right. We don't need to edit it. We'll just kind of pick it up whenever you're ready.
Sorry, it's live TV. Nothing stops for live TV.
It's all right. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it.
So I don't know, right? And this is when I found your podcast or whatever. This is where it was so ringing so much true, because your comment about, are you approaching retirement? And the truth is, I don't know really. I don't know what the end will look like for me, or when it comes. Each year I'm like, I don't have many more seasons left in me. I don't. And is it 3 years? Is it 2 years? Is it 1 year? And I've sort of said two conditions, right? And this is me tricking myself, going back to your previous conversation with Ev, in terms of the tells you tell yourself, right? So under two conditions, it's like, one, if I get another serious injury, if I snap another ACL or I do something serious, then I'm probably done, right? But then there's that little bit in me that is, but I can rehab that. I can get fixed. I can go have surgery, and I can fix that. I've done it twice. So there's that like little thing on my shoulder that's like, who says the next injury has to be the end? Obviously it depends on what it is. And if it's a bone break or whatever, bones mend and it's fine. So that's sort of like condition one. And I'm 38, but I keep myself in good shape. I outlift most of the offensive line and have done for a while. I fit and whatever. And then the other condition is, once I stop being competitive, and if I drop back into, backup and not taking meaningful game reps and all that sort of stuff, because you'll know, and anyone watching this, how much time this sport takes. And it's not just the practice, it's not just the game days, it's if you are inclined to be in the gym and condition, because many Brit ballers don't, they just rock up on a Sunday and give it a go. Whereas I'm not. I'm one of the people that do work out and try to maintain staying relevant by staying strong, So I've gone from playing running back to this season I play tight end now and fullback, because I'm strong. I can lift and I can move and I can block, and that kind of stuff. So I'm no longer playing on the outside or running sweep plays. I'll leave that to the skinny 18-year-olds. But I've got a job to do, and I know football. So they're sort of my two conditions that I've sort of tried to convince myself that when those things happen is when I'll stop.
Okay. Because you talked about kind of being competitive and all the other bits. Talk to me about GB, the latest GB. You were talking about it, in the pre-call. Was that this year? You had spoke to Kev?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So
talk to me about that.
So, as I said in our pre-call, I've had, I've played this sport for 22 odd years or whatever the number is, and the two things that have eluded me so far are a championship ring and playing for GB. And I, back in the day when GB selection was a little bit different, you could get invited to trials. So I went to a couple of trials, never quite made the playing squad, but was always like, oh, you're on the reserve list, and like never made it. And then, 2 ACLs down, I'm no longer, I was never fast, but I was quick. And I don't think I even count as quick anymore. I'm just, I just move now. And speed kills and all that sort of stuff. And I just thought, well, that GB dream is dead. But every season I compete, there's always a chance for a ring. So that one's not dead yet. And then when I saw that Kev Keown had become head coach, my mentality changed just for a sort of brief moment, because Kev knows me as a teammate. We've been teammates. We've played alongside each other, and we played against each other when Kev was at the Warriors, and the Jets played the Warriors in that season. We played the semi-finals, and I was on D, standing in for people, so Kev knows me as a person, as a teammate, and what I can bring. So I messaged Kev and I was like, I'd love to come and play for you at GB. Because I'm playing tight end now. I do have that 20 years of football experience, so I can read the game. I know what's going on. I'm as strong as they come in terms of your average Brit baller. And I thought maybe I could play for you. Maybe I could come play a role in your team. And he messaged me back and was like, if you think you can, come try out. I would love to have you on the team, but if you think you've got it, come try out. And I remember when it came to the day, I was just like, nah, that's gone. Like, don't put yourself through that and go up there and, just, I'd put in a good show, but I just don't think I'm of that caliber anymore, So
what makes you think that? What is it that's you kind of like, I'm just not good enough anymore? What is it? Is it kind of the injuries that's caused that? The age? What is it?
I think the age, the stigma that goes with it, and I sort of alluded to already, and it's a common joke between people that know me in football. It is the speed, and I think the speed is the bit that you can't hide from. As good a running back as I am, if you can see, I can read the hole, but if I can't get there quick enough, because it closes before I've gone, then that's it. And I just think those guys that make that team, they are the elite of the country. And I just think the lack of speed will kill. And there's too many good athletes that go to those tryouts that they wouldn't take a lumbering old 38-year-old. And it's funny, and I use that old thing because I don't feel old. Like I go to practice and I compete, and like I say, we the Bobcats this year, we've got Matt Panda Smith, and he's the world's strongest disabled man. He's our S&C coach, and he devised a fitness test for us in the off season, and we were supposed to do it. And I'm a 38-year-old, and I was finishing second and third on the team with this grueling sort of thing,
Nice.
So I'm like, I know I've got the fitness to do it and all that sort of stuff. And we played a preseason game a couple of weeks ago against Portsmouth, and we were so low on numbers because it was Saturday and it was short notice and all that sort of stuff. I got asked to play D end for the first time in my career. Never ever done it. So I played D. Yeah, never done. But they were like, "Oh, just you're strong, you can do it." So I went in and played D end, and I played tight end and fullback as well. So I played both ways the whole game.
Jesus.
Scored a couple of touchdowns, made a good couple of catches. I got a sack, I recovered a fumble, and I was like really just reminded myself of why I love playing football, because that day was just fucking around in the park with Kit, right? And when I got to the huddle, it wasn't, a honorable shout out to Chris Hobbs. I got an MVP call out from the coaches for playing both ways and just doing the whole game. And the jokes that came from the team were not like good job. It was, who knew that old man could still move? Who knew the old knees could keep up with it? And it was all these jokes about my age, my knees, that was the comments and the jokes that the old man still got it, and the old man could still move. And we just had our season opener against South Wales. The game didn't go well. It was 26-0. And like I said, I've been playing tight end, but because of what I did at Portsmouth in the preseason, they asked me to start at fullback. So I played fullback and just went to lumbering. If you watch the game film, there's space over here, but then there's a guy there. I know my game. I don't have the speed to get to the edge anymore. So I'll just run the guy over, right, and take my chances by running him over. And that's what I did for the game, and was breaking decent runs and whatever. So actually, for the first opening game of the season, I won offensive MVP from fullback on a team that didn't score a point and it's stuff like that. It's stuff like that makes me go, I can still play this game. Who says I need to retire? Who says that I need to stop? Because I've just gone out and started at a position I didn't train in all preseason and balled out
and done your job.
But again, the jokes in the huddle were, old man still got moves. And I shared it with my uni friends, the old, Jets alumni. And one of the guys alluded to the fact that I got MVP. And they were like, oh, it's really impressive to win MVP at 40. I was like, fuck you, I'm 38. I'm not 40 yet. So
it's creeping up on you, though.
Yeah, and this is so when I found your podcast and was listening to the people talk and all, and you I think you phrased it as like that inner turmoil battle of when is the right time to stop. And I don't know. I've tricked myself into thinking those two conditions are the things that will mean I'll end. But a bit like what Ev was saying on his episode, right? The thought of not having that routine, that cadence of practice. Like I still love going and putting on my kit and balling out and having fun. All of my best friends, they've all stopped playing and they've all started taking up golf, and because they lost the love of the game. I still have that love for the game. It's not become a burden for me to go to practice or to play a game like it has done for those others. And you nodded about what this game takes from you in terms of the time and all that sort of stuff, but people that aren't involved with it just don't get it. And when you're involved in it, you get it. You have a duty to your brothers that they become. Each year you get 50 new friends. And when I was president of the Coventry University Jets, we used to do a welcome meeting. So you do the recruitment and then you do a welcome meeting and before the first practice. And I remember we had an auditorium full of like 80 prospective rookies that were all sat in there. And the first thing I used to say to them was, "Hi everyone, I'm Tef from the Jet. I'm the president this year." And said, "I want you to look around the room and just have a look at everybody here." And they did. And I said, "The best man to your wedding is probably sat in this room right now, and you don't know who he is." And that has come true for so many of my friends, that we've been groomsmen, we've been best man, and ride or die brothers and stuff. And it's that I can't bear the thought of losing as much as it is fun to play. And people always say, there's coaching afterwards, so you won't lose it. And I don't know, like I like coaching now. So I'd done a bit of university coaching. So I was coaching at the Basketball Bulldogs. I coached at the Bullets for a little bit in Bristol. And then I was a long-time running backs coach at Barracuda. The only reason I don't coach right now is because it's, living in the arsehole of Dorset is too far to any nearest team. And Bournemouth Uni is the nearest team. But, I'm a single parent and I can't get there in the week. But I have just started coaching for the Royal Navy. Because of my affiliation through work, I can get volunteering leave through work because we do submarines, so I can go do that through my work. And people say to me, "You're a long time retired, right? You're a long time retired, and you've got your whole life to coach. So while you can play." And I remember that when I tore my last ACL. The doctor said to me, the point at which I should have stopped playing to prevent future damage, like arthritis and all that sort of stuff, was a long time ago. So that point that you should have stopped playing to preserve your future was a while ago. So while you can play, carry on playing, and if you get broke, we'll fix you up, and you can go back out there until you don't want to do it anymore.
Okay, so you're not. It's sort of like it's coming, but you're going to push back. You're right there. For as long as you can.
Sat in the door. Yeah.
But man, that's kind of. But that's the thing is it's there. It's looming, and you're aware of it. It's knocking on the door, but you're just like you're trying your best to ignore it because the thought of being retired is far too scary.
Yeah,
I absolutely understand that, and because that's the thing is, if your career ended like next week, tomorrow, whenever, what would your life look like? Do you think you could coach and not play? What would it look like?
That's a really good question. And I was listening to what Ev was saying about, I think I'd want a break, and would I? What would I do with that? And if I knew that I was with nothing to do on a Sunday, would I just go down and watch? Or I generally don't know. I probably think I would go coach because I think I'd miss it too much. And we joked about, just beforehand about the Seahawks and the Masters and things like that. I mean, that's not something that's on my radar right now. I haven't been invited to the team or whatever, but
it should be. It should be. You're in 12th of July.
And also, you get the odd University Old Boys game that allows you to throw it back. So I don't know. And this is the thing that when I came across your podcast, it got me really thinking about it. What would I do? I'd like to think that my daughter will get into something or whatever, and I can go dedicate some time to spending Sundays with her or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't. My daughter lives with me, but she goes to her mum at the weekends, and then I get 1 in 3 weekends, and so actually it doesn't take away at this point in time. It's not just stopping me from getting from my daughter, and those mistakes were made previously when I was with my ex-wife and putting too much time into football instead of family stuff. So would I don't know. I think that in a bit of me would just want to go coach. Because I feel like I've got, the reason why I started coaching university is because I feel like I've got a lot of knowledge to give.
For sure, you've got some experience there, but
and I, again, alluding back to that time at American university, if I can give even 10% of what football has given me to some other people, I want that for them. I want that stuff, and I think that's a great thing about university American football, right? You get these skinny kids that have been outsiders or whatever. They come to football and they suddenly get 50 friends. They find the gym; it completely transforms their life, and then they've got all this sort of stuff. And I want that for more people. I want what football has given me to more people. And if I can play, I've been on teams where there's no positional coach, or the coaching staff are stretched because there's only 2 or 3 of them, and so I'm like, well, if I can stop that happening for other people, then maybe I would. But yeah, long time retired, long time coach. So I'm 100% sure at some point I will coach full time when the playing stops. Would I do it straight away? I don't know. And it depends on what that looks like for my life and all that sort of stuff. I think I'd miss it too much to not be involved in some capacity. But a bit like what Ev was saying was, I'm pretty sure I could still ball. So that's going to be a really, I'd have to have something that would prevent me from balling to like be on the sideline and not want to register as a player coach, So
it'd have to be something catastrophic for you to go, oh, I suppose it's out of my hands now.
Yeah, exactly that.
Oh yeah. Is there anything? I mean, you've had 2 ACL injuries, you've had all the other kind of the chaos and of life and that. If you were to go back to kind of, maybe not you as a youth player, because it's hard to speak to a youth, but you as a university player, is there anything you'd do differently about your career?
It's a great question. I don't know.
Heavy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a heavy question. Yeah, and I don't know, but it depends on what you're asking. Is it? I think there's a bit of hindsight in this, right? So,
okay.
I've alluded to the fact that my dedication to football has put strain on my marriage when I was there and all that sort of stuff, and that's because, and at the time I was arguing the point that you find any athlete in any sport that's on the cusp of playing for Great Britain, playing for their team, that doesn't take it seriously, that isn't at the gym every day, that isn't driving and making sure he's at every practice, like that's and I always thought that being a good teammate and everything will pay dividends, right? So I think if I could, in hindsight, knowing that actually that GB was never going to happen, then maybe I didn't need to put so much into it, if that makes sense. I didn't need to be every practice, and it wouldn't matter if I missed a practice for a family barbecue or something, or making my going to a wedding on the Saturday and making my ex-wife get up at 6 o'clock in the morning so I could be home in time for practice, that kind of stuff. So I think that's what I would do differently, is like I could have still had so much fun playing and taken a lot from the sport without pursuing something that ultimately never happened for me. But obviously at the time you don't know that, right? At the time I didn't know I was 1 game away from snapping my ACL. At the time I didn't know that these things were going to happen. So
and that's the weird thing, is it's like no regrets. You're kind of happy with your career, and you're like, there's still a lot more of your story to go, because obviously you're gonna come down to the Masters, you're gonna do all the bits and pieces for that. And you still might get another 2-3 years with the Bobcats, but you wouldn't speak to your university self and say, maybe don't do that, other than take some time for yourself, because what I'm looking at is it's not just the lads that are at the tail end of this career that might be looking at it. It's the ones that are just starting that might be watching and saying, I want to see what these like more mature players, these more clued up players are talking about.
Yeah.
You know, because there's some that are saying, oof, I've got to worry about like even CTE. There's some of the players that are worried about that sort of thing that are like, ooh, I don't know if I would have gone in head first on a lot of things. But there's this story to be told by everyone.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that no regrets thing is yeah, I think the regret I have that it's taken so much, like I've put too much into it, if that makes sense. And I think when my friends started dropping out, right? So they're guys that are perfectly able to still play. You know, one of the guys, you know, toyed with the Tamworth and they played in the thing, you know, in the GB and all that sort of stuff. And you know, when they started having kids and they dropped out and everything like that, and it was difficult at that time because they were, and it was something that never quite fathomed. I think this is where my ex-wife lost it with me, really, because that switch didn't go off in my head. You know, they were like, well, I could carry on playing football, or I could spend Sunday with my newborn child. So they chose to do that. And at the time I was like, well, don't blame the kid. It's not the kid's fault. You're choosing to spend time with your kid instead of football. And that's okay. But don't blame the kid, right? Don't say it's because you've had a kid, because you could play football. Those two things can exist in the same world, because I was doing it. And that's the story that I told myself, right? I had 6 days with my kid and I could do one for myself. So I think that's my regret, that I probably put too much into it. But I don't, in terms of like not stopping after my first ACL, or, you know, and I think about what I did, the teams I played for, the friends that I've made, you know, toiling to make sure that Coventry University has a football team that's still going, all that good stuff. And now supporting the Navy and giving back to those guys, and they put in the most competitive set of games in the Inter-Services Cup after being the whipping boys for the last few years. You know, it's I've taken from the sport as much as I've given it. But yeah, no regrets on that front.
Good on you, man. Good on you. That, like I say, that's what we're here to do. We're here to tell stories. We're here to look at it from a million different angles, or as many people that want to talk to this ugly mug as you know, as want to. But yeah, that's it. It's been wild. Before we kind of wrap this up, though, because I've written it down on this thing. Tell me about Vernon Kay.
Yeah, I thought I would drop it in there, is because it's one of the funniest things that happened, and it's, you know, every time this thing pops up on, you know, the annual reminder. So yeah, the guys always bag on me. So it's safe to say that Vernon Kay and I are probably not friends, even though he probably doesn't even know who I am. And if he sees this, he'll be like, who the fuck's this guy? But it was really basically when I was playing for the Knights. Was it the Knights? Yeah, it was the Knights. We were playing for the Knights, and Vernon Kay was playing, I think he played safety for the Warriors. It was either safety or corner or whatever. Anyway, so play goes on. We jump up. I jump for the ball. Vernon Kay comes in. We collide midair. Like, I don't catch the ball, obviously, because the safety's just come down and basically blindside hit me, whatever. It was a good hit, good cracking hit, whatever. And I was like on the deck, and I remember him standing over me, you know, because say what you like about Vernon Kay, he was a baller, right? He could hit,
he was a good player,
right? He was good, and he stood above me. He was like, "You got worse hands than me, you fucking dickhead," and walked off, right? And I walked to the sideline, and I remember like Tutor being there, and Dave Carpenter were there, DC. And like, what happened? I was like, "Oh, Vernon Kay just called me a dickhead." They're like, well, what are you going to fucking do about it? I was like, oh, I'm going to get him back, the motherfucker, right? So, but then he never came back on the field, or he was never over me, and never got the chance, right? So, fast forward a number of years, and I was playing for the Jets, and this was the year that I think that the Warriors started to dabble with, and well, the rumor we were trying to set up a preseason game against the Warriors. Right, and our coach was like, iron sharpens iron, let's go have a preseason against the best team in the country. Yeah, we'll get the shit kicked out of us, but we'll be better for it, kind of deal.
Yeah.
But then the preseason game got cancelled because apparently the Warriors were going to play in Europe, so they were going to save their whatever it was for the Europe. And I remember putting out a Facebook status at the time, you know, naive young lad that I was, saying something along the lines of, shame we're not going to get to my get.
Oh no. He was just getting to it and his internet's died. Oh, that is absolutely devastating. I'll give him a couple of seconds to see if he comes back, because at the moment he's just hung. But if we can't get Tef back, I promise I will. I will find out what that story is. Oh, he's back. He's back. Ish. Oh no. Oh, he's thinking about it. We're trying.
Are we there?
Yeah, we're there. We're there.
Are we good?
So we
okay.
got
So which bit did it get before it cut off?
We got naive Facebook status. Shame we didn't, and I think that's where it stopped. Yeah.
So basically, said shame. Shame. I'm not going to be able to get my. Oh, I think there's a bit of a lag.
I think you're all right. It's all right. There's been a bit of a lag for the story, but it's fine. You're okay.
Okay. So I put this status out that said, shame, I'm not going to get my revenge on Vernon Kay. I'm not going to get to smack Vernon Kay as revenge for what he said, or something along those lines or whatever. But obviously, Vernon was a teammate at the Warriors, and Kev Keown was friends with me, and DC was friends with me, and they were teammates of Vernon Kay at the Warriors. And back then it was like the Facebook settings were like you could see your friends of friends posts or whatever it was because of the privacy settings. Anyway, so for whatever reason, my status that I put on Facebook came across Vernon Kay's personal Facebook page, basically, of me saying, not going to get my revenge to smack this guy back for calling me a dickhead the years before or whatever. It was a complete like non-violent hit. It was just me being like, oh, it's because it's Vernon Kay kind of deal. And like Vernon probably like gets loads of shots setting his bow because he's a celebrity and all that sort of stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, so what happened was basically, so Vernon Kay saw this, he screenshotted the status with my full name, my picture, and the status that I wrote, and then he put it out on his official Twitter with his millions of followers, basically saying another fool, ain't no preseason in Europe or something like that, right? So basically just threw the mud back essentially or whatever. But I then suddenly got loads of hate sent to me, like all of these like Vernon Kay bummers and all that sort of stuff, and there was like, don't know what he's talking about, because it had my name, my profile, so people could find me, and I was getting all these shitty messages sent to me and all that sort of stuff, and it was a real fun time. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I remember like Kev Keown like messaging me privately going, look, you mess with fire, right, you get burnt. So like Vernon's a good dude, he's just, he gets loads of shots sent his way, so don't worry about it. So yeah, so that Vernon Kay Twitter status with my picture and profile is like screenshotted by my ex-uni teammates. It's something that every year it pops up. They always go, never forget the day that Tef got called out publicly by Vernon Kay and had shitloads of stuff sent his way.
I love that as a story.
There's no beef whatsoever. It was funny.
I love that as a story. It's just we're never going to get to play. How dare you? How very dare you? And then you've got all these people kicking off.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Britball. It'll never change.
Me too. Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been good. I've had a hell of a ride. I still love going to practice, but I know the day is coming, and I'm really sad about that. And it was something I really leaned into. So when I got divorced and you end up back on the dating scene, it's like, hey, I'm an American football player. Like I play for Bournemouth. And it's like, just saying, and it's still find that unique and pride that it gives me. As I sort of alluded to, I was bullied when I was a kid, so finding the gym and getting bigger and stronger and walking around with a little bit of swag because I've got that, and I've got 50 guys that can back me up if I ever get in trouble. And that's I remember when I got my girlfriend and she had a flat tire, and I was like, I don't live in Bournemouth, I live 45 minutes north, and I was like, but it's fine, I'll ask my teammate to come around and change it for you, like he's just down the road. And she's like, he doesn't know me. I'm like, it doesn't matter, like that's the kind of thing we do for each other. If I called him and said, hey bro, that my girlfriend's around the corner with a flat tire, could you go change it for her? He'd be like, yeah, no problem, I'll be there in 2 minutes. So
Yeah. Again, that's a Brit ball thing as well. It's kind of cute and something we do in the Hawks, except we're just a bit bigger. We've got everyone all over the place, as you'll find out. But mate,
it's about time the Hawks played the GB. You know, it's about like the Hawks. You know, when we watch that unfold and the way it goes and stuff like that, I'm like, that's the way a national program probably should be run, not like the shit that we get.
Well, me and Kev have had the chat that
because he plays for the Hawks Masters, doesn't he?
Yeah, of course he does. We've said number one, we're getting a matching tattoo. Kev, I'm calling you out. This is happening. We're going to split that G. And the other one is we've applied obviously to IFAF to get in for the nationals to play. And I said, and he goes, if it happens, are we having a friendly? I went, absolutely, but that'll be a hell of a game. You know, who knows which way it'll go. And the good thing is we can have loads of imports as well because we're Sealand.
Yeah.
I'm not playing fair, obviously. Kev knows that. But yeah, man. But thank you very much for talking to us. And
thanks for having me.
I know it's looming, and I know it's a scary prospect and that. But when it comes, you know, I mean, you've had a great career. You will undoubtedly, by the sounds of it, go into coaching. You'll still lean on the CrossFit and the training and all that sort of stuff. So it's not. I'm trying to reassure you now. It's hopefully not as scary as it sounds, but I appreciate, because obviously retired now, it is a very, very frightening. I went from about 2016. I never used to buy new kit, like new boots, like and Gucci stuff, because I was like, well, I'm going to retire next year. What's the point? I'm not going to be here next year. So I've got like my gloves are about 6 years old because I'm like, well, I'm never going to play again. And they think, oh, go on, we'll have one more game. So then,
like I was saying, I haven't reached the point where I'm saying this is it, right? I haven't reached the point that next year's that's it. But you know, I have this identity crisis each year. Am I good enough? You know, oh, coaches brought in somebody else to my position. Does that mean he doesn't think I'm good enough anymore? And every year I have to go through this cycle of, you know, competing. And this year, you know, last year I was a starting tight end. This year I lost my start to a guy that's transferred from linebacker. So right before the first game of the season, I'm like, well, I've lost some starting tight end spot to a guy that played linebacker this year. That's it. I'm shit. You know, I'm now not competitive, like I said, you know, so now's the time. We'll see how it goes. And then I go and get called out as a starting fullback and have MVP game. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'm not done, you know, maybe I still can. And it's just what I can offer is now different, you know. And at some point, am I just going to end up playing offensive line because I can't no longer run anywhere, but I'm strong enough to play tackle or something like that? And, you know, or like I said, I had that preseason game where I suddenly played DN for the first time ever and got a sack and stopped run. So who knows? But I haven't quite reached that point of, you know, this is my last year. But then, you know, later down this season, if I suddenly drop to getting no game time and I'm just watching people play, then who knows, by the end of this year, I'm like, nah, next year, you know, I'm not done. Because for me, that's that competitive bit, right? If I'm not competitive, then I'm not interested. If I'm not taking meaningful game time, and that might be selfish or whatever, then fine. But then, you know, that's where I was saying I think the Bobcats will be my last team, because one could then say, well, just, you know, go to Swindon then and go play D2. You'll start at Swindon, you know, and it, you know, just chasing that game time. And it's like, well, no, I think if it gets to that point, I'm probably done.
That's fair, and that's fair. You've got lots going on. You've got, you know, your kids. You've got a Gucci job. You've got everything else going on. I think you'll be fine. I think you'll be fine.
No, I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me. And yeah, stumbling across your page on TikTok was where I found it, and I was just suddenly listening and going like, wow, yeah. Shit, this is a conversation I've been looming to have, you know.
I'd only done two posts, and you know, you were like, yeah, I want to. I was like, geez, TikTok is powerful, crikey.
Yeah.
But Matt, it's been emotional. It's been wild. It's been lovely to get to know you, and hopefully, like I say, I'll see you in July, or September, and October. This is how I do it. I don't care. Everyone knows this. I'll just kind of meet you in the pub and go, so you're a Seahawk now, and people go, okay, yeah, sure.
Well, Keith Barnes, and I think David Isaacs, they play on the Bobcats. They play with the Seahawks, so I can say I'm in now. So because they didn't invite me.
I think that the thing is the old style recruitment was a bit different. Now, I will just middle of the night, or at least kind of 10 to 10 of a Tuesday night write you a Seahawk now. Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus. But anyway, big loves, buddy.
Thanks, mate.
It's been emotional. I've been Mike Island. This has been Life After the Locker Room, and that has been Tef Chris Hobbs. Thanks very much, mate.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Big love. Ta-da.
Take care.